guys, Margaret Force here, and I have a question for you. Why is it that crazy is such a bad word? Forbidden on many tongues, meant to describe those who stray from normalcy. But the reality is that, in our own special way, we are all a little bit crazy, and I think that's the best thing in the world. Think about it. Let me back up a bit, all the way to my childhood, many eons ago. I was a nutty little kid, full of life and many different ideas running around my mind 24/7. I had questions about everything, as I'm sure many little kids do. And everything that popped into my mind, I said aloud. I had no filter whatsoever because I didn't see a need to have one. But as I grew older, I was told to be quiet. Other kids gave me weird looks or punished me with cruel words and judgments for saying the thoughts in my head aloud. So over time, I learned to keep to myself. I trained my brain to lock up ideas until someone revealed to me that they were having similar ones, and then I was permitted to agree, but only to a certain extent. However, now that I think about it, doesn't that sound like a bunch of bullshit? The greatest minds in history, the ones that changed the world, were filled with crazy thoughts. And if they hadn't spoken up about what was running through their head, they never would have created such wonderful things for mankind. I feel that this phenomenon exists in general life, but more than anything, it thrives in people's perception of mental illness. For example, I have depression and anxiety, mostly because there are voices in my head. When people hear this, they think, oh, voices. So they're telling her to kill people. Actually, writing this now and saying that I have voices in my head makes me think that as well, even though I know for a fact that they're just like little versions of myself living in my head, influencing every decision I make. But it's this social stigma that people have around mental illness that makes me think of that and automatically writes myself off as a nut job, even though that is so not the case. Any hoodles. I was talking to a friend recently about my inner monologue, which is that little voice. For those who don't know what that is, an inner monologue is essentially someone who narrates every single thing that I do. Some people have it and others don't. And it just so happened that this particular friend of mine does not have it, which got me talking about the several voices in my head. So she began asking me questions such as, do these voices make you, or are they separate little entities? And are they similar to a moral compass? Questions I had never even thought about before because I simply just assumed that this is something that everyone has going on in their head. But the one thing I noticed throughout this entire conversation is that there was not an ounce of judgment in any one of her questions. And I can't tell you how much that meant to me. And I think that's a great thing, to be able to have these types of conversations with an open mind and an understanding that just because someone thinks differently than you, it doesn't make them lesser of a human being. It just means that they look at life in a different light, with a different perception and a different mindset. There's this idea of what normal or socially acceptable should look like, which is very approachable and easy to be around. It's why people made the word normal in the first place, to alienate those who make them feel out of place or scared. But the truth is, no one is really normal. Even going back to my friend, she may not have voices in her head, but her brain is still one of much magnificence and unique quality. For example, she is a whiz at anything that can be approached from an objective point of view, and yet she is obsessed with anything involving zodiac signs, which is nothing but subjective. I don't understand it all, but I still love talking to her about it because I can see that little light shine in her eyes when she's teaching me about the traits that come with being an Aquarius and the traits of being born under a certain moon. That is the kind of light we need more of in this world, the kind of light that normal cannot inspire. And if you spend your entire life trying to attain normal, that's going to be a very boring life to live. It is also worth mentioning that establishing the ignorancy in normalcy means giving people a chance to speak their mind freely. For example, Jeffrey Dahmer. Stay with me now, because this is going to get a little more socially controversial very quickly. For those who don't know, Jeffrey Dahmer was an American serial killer in the 80s. He was known for capturing males, sexually abusing them, and then eating them alive. The fascinating part about Dahmer was that there was nothing abnormal about the way that he grew up. Scientists often blame serial killers for the way they were raised, but it has been proved that Dahmer was raised by two very loving parents who took good care of him and didn't take notice of anything strange about Dahmer's behavior. Even Dahmer told camera crews after he had been in prison that he truly didn't understand what was wrong with him, because he had been having these urges since he was young and simply couldn't figure out why. He actually admitted that it was sort of a relief for him to get arrested because for the first time in his life, he was able to be honest with people about who he was. But what if Dahmer had told someone about these urges before he had gotten older? He didn't start killing people until he was around 18 years old, I believe. The question must be asked, could lives have been saved if Dahmer had felt comfortable enough to tell someone what he was experiencing? Personally, I love my voices. That may freak some people out, but I don't care because I know that my voices are not a danger to myself or others. All they do is allow me to view the world in a way I have never previously thought was possible. I am creative and loving and empathetic because of my voices, and I have the power to do great things and change the world because I embrace them and allow them to influence my perceptions. Do the bad ones get loud sometimes? Absolutely, which is why I have therapy, which I was only able to start attending because I felt safe enough to talk about and be honest about what goes on in my head for many years. Now I have coping skills and many reassurances packed away in my skull for the days that I start feeling like they are doing more than keeping me in check. My point? Society, stop trying to change me into the version of me you want me to be. Stop shoving pills down the throats of those you deem threatening. The only threatening part about us is our potential to achieve greatness, which is something you will never have. I am who I am, voices and all. And this girl is going to create wonderful things with or without your support. Thank you for listening. I love you lots.